Okay, I'm going to call the meeting to order. Marin County Public Finance Authority, Wednesday, sorry, for April 1st. That's the April 1st joke. I guess. The time is 3:01 and we are meeting in 410B, I believe it is. Board member Lippy is under just cause remote and participating in this meeting. Board member Lippy, is anyone in the room with you that's over 18 years old?
No.
We have a roll call, please.
Chair Rodoni,
Here.
Board Member Vasquez.
Here.
Looks like Board Member Satori is absent. Board Member Lippy,
Here.
Board Member Jensen.
Here. Very good. We have a quorum and we can do business. Second item on the agenda is open time for public comments for items not on the agenda today. So we're looking for public comments in room first. Not seeing anyone online want to make a public comment at this time?
No.
You have opportunity after each report. So if you have something you'd like to comment on later, that'd be great. So we'll move to item 3, which is approve our minutes of February 18th. Everyone should have a copy of the minutes. Is there any suggested amendments or changes to the minutes? Thank you. No board member Satori has joined us. We're looking at the minutes. Anyone have any comments on the minutes? Looking for a motion to approve. I'll move. Thank you, Jensen. Second, Vasquez. Thank you. We have a motion and a second. We need to do a roll call, I think.
That's right. Chair Rodoni,
Yes.
Board Member Vasquez.
Here.
Board Member Satori. Yes. Board Member Lippy,
Do I need to abstain if I was absent? I'm assuming I do. I'll abstain.
Board Member Jensen.
Yes.
Very good. The minutes are approved. Item 4 is the executive director's report. Matthew.
All right, well, good afternoon, everyone, and I want to take an opportunity to really thank Lynn for stepping in for Blas, who was out on leave, and so we really appreciate you volunteering to help us out. So I just want, I provided a 2-page summary of my executive director's report. A lot's happened over the last few weeks, and so I'll just walk through the major items. The first update item is the JPA budget itself. You may recall when you adopted the budget in June, it was at a $210,000 level. Our spending is largely at or below those spending levels. You also may recall that there was an assumption that we would issue the bonds in April. And so the idea was that starting in April, the bond proceeds would pay for the remainder of our operating budget. As you know, that's not happening. So we are at the point where we are expected to run out of the MCOE grant of $100,000, which was meant to get us through April. So, that will run out over the next 2 weeks. There's approximately $2,500 left in that $100,000 fund. Fortunately, we're in a position that we can utilize the state McGuire funds to keep our JPA operational between now and the end of the year. So that is our plan. The only other highlights on the projected spending is that under the Treasurer Services and Financial, we had assumed that we would do an audit for the JPA because once we get the bond funds, that would trigger an audit requirement. We do not anticipate doing that. So we are saving $50,000 in that for that item. However, we did have $35,000 that was spent on our FA services. You may recall, given that the project had gone longer than expected, I think it was in either November or December. In November, we approved a $35,000 one-time payment So that's reflected in our year-to-date. So with that overall summary, I'm happy to pause here and see if there's any questions on the JPA's operating budget.
Board members, any questions of the administrative budget?
Dennis, I have a quick question, please. Matthew, when you say we're saving the money related to the audit costs, is that we're earmarking it for the future audit that we'll do, or can you talk more about that? Because we know it's important to do that at some point.
Yes, as soon as we issue bonds, that's the start of our financial activity for the JPA, and the bonds will require an annual audit. So at this point, we're assuming we'll include an audit cost in our next year's fiscal budget. So we're kind of deferring that expense, but as soon as we are required to do it, we need to make sure we're budgeting for it.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else, board members?
I have a question. What happens if the project timelines slip and the bond issuance doesn't occur in summer of 2026? Is there any sort of funding bridge beyond the 42.5 in the McGuire funds?
So the McGuire funds doesn't end on June 30th, so potentially we could continue to utilize those as long as we can stay within budget and see ourselves having a path toward issuing those bonds. And we'll definitely can provide updates, well before that time.
So Matthew, right now you're anticipating 42,500 from the wire fund?
Approximately, yeah. Yeah, for the final 3 months of the fiscal year.
Anything else, board members?
Okay, so the next item, and probably more significant item to report, is the change in the market conditions since we last met. So we last met February 18th. At that time, interest rates were trending down. This was before the war in Iran. Since that time, there have been significant interest rate increases, and as you know, increases in the cost of gas and fuel. So those have a negative effect on our ability to maintain a balanced budget. And so interest rates have gone up by approximately 40 basis points since we last met. And so that creates a challenge for us. And we are hearing about, again, we last spoke about construction costs being relatively flat. And that was the way it was trending when we met last month. Given the high cost of fuel, we're now, hearing construction costs have increased. So both of those are headwinds that we're facing with trying to, keep a balanced budget. So we are working with our partners, MCOE, the county, and College of Marin, and our financial advisors to look at, structuring options that can help reduce or offset the cost of the increase in interest rates, and we'll certainly report back to you as we get through those. There are scenarios where if the war ends and the market goes back to where it was before, where that's obviously a better place for us to be. But I did want to make sure that you were aware that we are facing some challenges now with this change in conditions that are outside of our control, but certainly impact our budget greatly. So,
do we know how much the updated construction costs will impact the budget?
So as you recall with the CMAR we issued, we are kind of waiting until we know what our date is, where the bond funds will be available. And then I think the contractor, and Bruce can certainly correct me on this, the contractor has 30 days to give us a revised bid, and then we would come back to you and share where we were at that time. And like I said, we just anecdotally heard that prices have gone up, and we know that fuel is a big part of cost estimates. And so it really will depend on, where the economy is in June, right? As we're finalizing our budget. But Bruce, did you want to add anything on the construction cost?
Yeah, I think this has been such a quick shock to the system that we really haven't seen exactly how costs. We can speculate that costs are going to go up though. because fuel is either in products or in transportation of materials to the site. So it's going to factor in. I wouldn't be surprised that if you were to price something today, it would be 10% higher than where we were 3 days ago. At the same time, no projects are moving forward. So I think that one of the tailwinds that we have had is the fact that subcontractor profit margins have been decreasing as they've been trying to find more work and be more competitive. Again, we'll find out more when we're getting closer to the date where we have to get our hard bid dialed in. But the other tailwind that we have is the tariffs have gone away. So consequently, to some degree, we were pricing in contingency to deal with tariff risk.
Okay, thank you.
So just,
Let's see if there's any other questions related to that. Other questions? So Matthew, but basically our objective is to have a balanced budget going forward.
yeah, and that's what I was going to say is that, I feel like, we need to report to you that, market conditions have changed and we kind of been clear all along that there are some things that we don't have direct control over, but impact the ability for us to balance. But with that said, we've also said all along, we won't go forward without a clean site and a balanced budget. So we are working toward those goals and we'll kind of report to you every month on where we are in that effort. Yeah. The last thing on next step and project timelines, just to go through a few of those things. The first one is working with guarantor agencies and bond counsel to develop required legal agreements. Because we are currently looking at a few different financing scenarios with our partners, we're kind of holding off until we kind of settle in on the exact structure of the financing that we would be looking at. So we hope to kind of revive those discussions with legal counsel probably toward the end of April. The second thing that is we're having a lot of attention focused to is the legal review of the state ground lease, and in particular the insurance requirements that are reflected in that ground lease. And so we are working with the county's risk manager and the outside legal counsel and our legal counsel to suggest changes in some of those agreements to be more consistent with what would be required in the bond, as opposed to some of the requirements that the state initially gave us on the insurance requirements. But that is something that would likely have a net increase in our operating budget at the end of the day as well. But we're working with the risk manager to kind of quantify that, and we'll report back to you on that once we have better information on it. So that would probably be, are there any questions on that?
Maybe for the public, you just restate who the governing boards now are.
So yeah, the governing boards are the College of Marin, MCOE, and then Board of Supervisors of the county.
Thank you. Any other questions about project timeline?
Yeah, I just actually had a question going back to the ground lease. Insurance requirements. What type of insurance does the state look at for something like this?
So we expected that bonds, the bondholders are going to care that we have insurance. And so there's an expectation that we would have insurance over the project construction, as well as ongoing insurance for the property and some level of general liability. The state initially had kind of more strict requirements in their draft than what it would be for a bondholder, which has a financial impact on it. So we're kind of working with the state to try to bring those insurance requirements back in line with what a typical bond requirement might be. One example of that is like if you have a deductible, the state was saying, well, we should have a line of credit that would equal our deductible, and that that would add expenses for that. I think perhaps we can deal with that by having our stabilization reserve available that could cover the deductibles as well. So those are that kind of detail that we're working, with outside counsel and our risk manager to try to work through before we give our comments back to the state.
Any other board member questions? Right, we can see if the public has any questions. I don't see anyone in the room,
Oh.
anyone?
I would just like to comment at the end of the director's report that the demand is still very high. Nevada Unified School District, again, though we are in the hiring period, we're experiencing a high level of turnover, even with staffing cuts, and that the affordability issues for most of our employees with the high cost of fuel and other issues continue to escalate and create a problem. So that we're still very hopeful that this project will come to light and that we'll be able to have some of our employees take advantage of it. That's my comment.
Thank you. Anyone else online who'd like to make a comment or has a question about the executive director's report? Thank you, Matthew. We'll move on then to the project developer update.
Matthew already covered the status of the ground lease. I'll note that we are in the process of getting our final plan check and permitting approved by DGS as well as the county fire. We are working with DTSC and the consultants to prepare our remedial action work plan. And we expect that in the next 30 to 60 days. And I'll also, teeing off the earlier comment, note that I chatted with the owners of Larkspur Courts, which is one of the newer projects built at Larkspur Landing. It was completed in 1989. It hasn't seen significant rehabs, but the new owners are looking to do that. Their current rents are in the range of $3,400 for a one bedroom, $4,500 for a two bedroom, and $5,500 for a three bedroom. When they do these upgrades, which are, to the bathrooms and to the kitchens for the most part, they're looking at getting 20% rent increases across the board. That's giving you a sense of the strength of the market and how high housing costs are. There's also the Ross Valley Sanitary District is also moving forward with selecting a developer for their site at Larkspur Landing Circle East and East Sir Francis Drake Boulevard, and that will also have 300 units of apartments, and those are expected to be priced much higher than Larkspur Landing, as it also involves the same developer owner. So that's my update on that front.
Great. Questions of Bruce?
Yeah, a Larkspur Court, that's the project behind the Marriott, correct?
Correct.
Wraps up the hill to the top of
Exactly.
what used to be the quarry.
Yeah, 3/1. Yeah. Nice project. Certainly when it was built, it was the cat's meow.
Yeah, it was much nicer than
Serenity.
which is where the Serenity were, right, Couch project.
Any other questions for me? Bruce, the DTSC 30 to 60 days, that puts us in the time frame that we expected.
We're still in that time frame right now. Correct.
Okay. Ken, anything on your side?
No, I'm good, Dennis. Thank you.
Anyone in the public have a comment or question of the developer? All right. Anything else? Do we need to set a date?
Yeah, I was gonna see if you could check your calendars for our next meeting, and just to start the conversation, I was gonna suggest May 7th sometime in the PM, like if we could look at 3 PM, but
I think it works for me.
there's a that works.
I think it's fine. My phone's still, I turned it off and it's slow to restart.
I'm good, yeah.
All right, well, so if that works for you, then we'll send out a hold the date for May 7th at 3 PM. And, announce the room and everything else.
Ken, that sound good to you?
It works for me.
I
Yeah.
would share with the board members here that next week, I believe the Board of Supervisors is interviewing for our 5th seat on this board, public seat. And next week, hopefully a selection will take place. So we might have a new board member in May, if that happens. And just want to thank Edgardo for his service. Really appreciate having you here for the first couple of years. Thank you for your support.
Yeah, it's been fun.
All right. And then Matthew, just on board members, it won't be till the new agreements are signed with the new governing board members that will have another shift at that point.
Yeah, so right at this point, given that really, we're only anticipating it with the College of Marin. So if the College of Marin decided to participate in the parent tour program, that would add one additional member.
Okay, very good.
And then we would add an additional county staff member to make it a 7-member board.
Okay,
Is the current.
that's the proposal now.
Yeah.
Very good. Anything else for the good of the order?
Yeah, thank you very much, everybody.
Okay, well, thank you all for attending. We're going to adjourn now to May 7th at 3 PM. Thank you. Thank you.